Now, it's my greatest pleasure to introduce the second half, the other half of the power couple that we have managed to get two for the price of one, all the way from San Diego. So Steph Gaudreau combines 12 years of formal education in biology and human physiology, science teaching experience, I don't know how you do it, holistic nutrition training, and strength and conditioning certification. She's one strong lady, and I'm looking forward to hearing her perspective. Please welcome Steph Gaudreau.
So today we're going to talk about the T word, which is toning. And the scope of this talk is more about the cultural and other challenges that women specifically face with the idea of, can we get stronger? I thought we were supposed to do toning. And aren't we supposed to look a certain way? So you won't hear me talk as much about the actual details that my esteemed colleague and husband just talked about, which is essentially, strength training 3 times a week, and these are the types of exercises you want to do, but more about the other really complex topics that us as women face, and those of you who are not women, the other 50% of the room, should think about when you're supporting the women in your life. And in case you're wondering, that is me. So today's topic is all about increasing the accessibility and acceptance of strength training for women in an aesthetic-driven world. Just kind of marinate on that for a second. So I started off with this fantastic-looking lady who is all about strong is the new skinny. And you've already seen a couple of Fitspo or healthspiration stuff pop up today. But, anybody's seen this, like strong is the new skinny, strong is the new sexy, right? So women are bombarded by this stuff all the time. And so I want to kind of talk about the beyond toning part, right? So we all know we have this like sneaking suspicion that women are being marketed to when it comes to being strong in a very, very specific way. So let's talk about toning first, and why women are generally afraid of getting strong, because the definition of toning doesn't quite match. The actual definition doesn't really match how it's used in fitness circles and in the fitness industry. So we oftentimes think about toning as being long and lean, elongate your muscles, right? Or have a very low body fat percentage, and at the same time a relatively small muscle mass. That's really how toning is used in context when we're talking about women's exercise. But when you look at the actual definition, give greater strength or firmness to the body or a part of it. And so I would argue here that we are not using the word toning in the correct definition. So why are we using it to encourage women to get smaller, to get long and lean, to elongate your muscles, like all these things that we talk about, like what is going on here? Because there's something rotten in Denmark, or Queenstown. So the central question that I came up with is, why don't women want to strength train? Or why don't they? And why is the focus when they do pick up a weight on toning? This, again, not in the actual dictionary definition that I just read, which does have to do with strength, but why is the focus on minimizing? And I tried to come up with a really linear way of going about this presentation, and I came up with this. So as you can see, it's an extremely complex topic. It's not an easy answer. And so I've identified 4 major issues that contribute, that I've seen, to this general reluctance. And by the way, this is stuff that I noticed in myself, in the other women that I lift with, and in the women that I coach. So I coach weightlifting at CrossFit 40th in San Diego. And I've been a weightlifter myself for 5 years. And in the fitness world for quite a lot longer than that, and an athlete in different sports for even longer than that. So the 4 main things that I've identified are the diet industry, health/fitness/diet industry, which we know is a huge thing. It's this juggernaut that it's like can't get rid of it. The influence of media, ignorance. And when I say ignorance, I don't actually mean that in a negative way. I just mean ignorance as a not knowing. And technology, and I'm going to touch on that kind of at the end. So presenting this whole thing in a linear fashion is a little bit of a challenge, and you're going to notice me jump around a little bit. But at the end, I want you to kind of think about how all these things point back to those two central questions. And what are we going to do about it? So when I was thinking about how to put this presentation together, I just kept writing down problems. Problem. And then solutions became really important because, as my friend Bonnie says, you don't want to be an Eeyore. Yeah, it's like one thing to identify the problems, but unless we actually do something about it, what's the point of complaining? So first problem. And if you're familiar with Banksy, you know this street art pretty well. So this is Banksy's caveman. As you can see, he's got a nice little tray of, who knows, fast food. Will I get in trouble if I say McDonald's? I don't know. McDonald's, perhaps. And so let's step back to our ancestral past, because that's like looking back and moving forward is the theme of this whole shindig that we're at. So look back to our ancestral past. We are weaker than we have ever been before, and this is the evolutionary context that's framing this whole discussion. But we're facing a crisis of health. The discordance between our modern society and the way that we've evolved has meant that we have unprecedented levels of disease and an overall decrease in the quality of life. And when you think about not just diet and all of these other things that we're talking about today and over this whole weekend, we see that movement is a part of that. So the absence of ancestral movement patterns and lack of movement is very common and a huge problem. And if you've seen the movie WALL-E, it's the most depressing animated movie you've ever seen in your life. It's this little robot, and he's in this future world, and everybody's just kind of sitting on reclining chairs and zooming around and not moving at all. And there's this really famous quote that came from Dr. Colin Shaw, which is, even our most highly trained athletes pale in comparison to these ancestors of ours. And you can definitely find some research, some stuff from even Alison McIntosh, PAVE Research Group from Cambridge University. A quote from her: both sexes exhibited a decline in antero-posterior or front-to-back strengthening of the femur and tibia through time. And so essentially what's happening is we are getting weaker. So problem one. Problem two. Rates of obesity and overweight are at all-time highs. How we define that certainly is problematic, but we know just by looking. You go to any place that's not fitness or health-oriented. We live in San Diego. We're kind of in a bubble. You travel anywhere else and you kind of get off the plane and you're like, what have we done? There's a problem. There's a problem. So in 2014, more than 1.9 billion adults 18 years or older were overweight. Of these, over 600 million were obese. There's a problem, right? So we have an issue with body sizes increasing, but at the same time, we're not addressing this other elephant in the room, which is we're more fat obsessed than we have ever been. Don't quote me on that. That's a Jamie Scott quote from last year's AHS in Berkeley. We are more fat obsessed than we have ever been. So we have this complete binary, like zeros and ones. You're either fat or you're not fat. And not fat is seen as healthy or of optimal health. Right? So I saw this statistic and it made me really sad. 81% of 10-year-olds are afraid of being fat. I'm not talking about being strong. We're just saying, like, if you're not fat, you're good. It's all good. I was talking to a gal right here. Her dad, major health crisis. Not of abnormal weight at all. So it's like, we have to start looking at this stuff. And as females, when we're talking about little kids, these are 10 years old, being afraid of being fat and how they're being judged, and their self-image and their self-worth is completely about how they look. Problem. And then of course, skinny here being perceived as the body type to have. We have high fashion. Again, this is all marketed at females. And not fat becomes synonymous with optimal health. This is the goal. So let's talk about the media, which, by the way, are predominantly male-dominated in terms of ownership and control, and how these media are powerfully shaping our body image perceptions. These are just some random covers from Oxygen magazine. So you can, even just by looking, you're like, if I don't have abs that look like that, what is my problem? 47% of girls in 5th to 12th grade reported wanting to lose weight because of magazine pictures. I used to be a high school teacher, so I saw this day in and day out. 69% of girls in 5th through 12th grade reported that magazine pictures influenced their idea of a perfect body shape. Kids are watching. And it's not just on social media with what their peers are doing, it's what we're feeding them. And then the nail in the coffin for the whole thing, the body type portrayed in advertising as the female ideal is possessed naturally by only 5% of American females. We're giving them an impossible ideal. 5%. What about the other 95% of people, of women? So big problems here in terms of the media. And then of course, as a result of all of this, we have a weight loss industry that is a huge business. And this graphic is from CNN. It's a pretty famous graphic about eating disorders. And you can just get the sense here of what the problem is. $20 billion a year in annual revenue in the US weight loss industry alone. So we're fat, look at all these skinny people, let's do something about it. And then we pour our money into the fitness and the diet industry. It's a huge business. So here are some solutions. What do we do about this? So this is a hat tip to the husband over there, but it's not just movement. So these are all things we know. Address your health holistically, remove processed, low nutrient value foods, include health promoting quantities of movement. Health promoting? Because it's possible to do movement in quantities that's not health promoting. Socialize, reduce stress, get out in nature, like all these things that we know. Strength training with appropriate intensity and volume that's designed to involve maximum muscle fiber and produce positive endocrine responses. All right, so see strength training for normal humans if you want more details on that. So beyond that, can we change the media? Can we change all these things? No, but we can change the dialogue and what comes from us, not only to our peers, but to our kids. So really quickly here, just back to the media for a second. These are snapshots I took in the airport a couple weeks ago. Women are encouraged to exercise for the purposes of minimizing, toning, reducing fat, and burning calories. It's right there. Slim down, sculpt, tone every inch, get flat abs. So women are predominantly being marketed at, in a way, to get smaller. Get smaller, you don't need to be strong. Is female weakness culturally encouraged? I don't know, you tell me. But when you look at the men's side, and this is right next to it. Just look. Same photos, by the way. We're holding plates in a really awkward way behind our head. The language is very different. Grow your muscles, muscle growth, bigger arms, build lean muscle, hurry up your muscle gain, lean and strong, big arms, grow. Anything about toning on here? Anybody? No. So yeah, both sides emphasize fat loss, but the messages aren't quite equitable. So another problem. This falls on the ignorant side. Women are fed a constant stream of misinformation about strength training. You're gonna end up looking like these guys. I asked a bunch of people on social media, a bunch of women, what stopped you from getting started with strength training? I'm gonna get big, I'm gonna get bulky. And we know that for most people that's not the case, and you have to train in a very specific way to look like this. Or worse than the misinformation that we're giving women, we don't give them any information at all. And a lot of women cited the fact that they didn't even know how to get started. They just didn't know, they were scared. They didn't have any information. So what about the women's side? Okay, so women can be bodybuilders too, and they're afraid they're gonna look like this as well. Maybe they'll end up looking a little bit more like the girl on the left. She's done some competition prep, you know, like eating 1,200 calories a day, white fish, greens only, that sort of stuff. But she's not like freakishly huge. The girl in the middle, maybe you're pushing it a little bit. But the truth of the matter is that giving women a barbell and asking them to move heavy weight isn't going to make them necessarily look like any of these girls. And here's a quote from one of the people on social media. Free weights were where the muscle bros and hot chicks hung out. No way was I going over there. I had no business taking my pudge around those people. So how do we explain this tiny little 53 kilo lifter from Chinese Taipei putting 1 1/3 times body weight over her head? It's not often that the media shows normal-sized women performing such feats of strength, and strong can also be small. For the record, that's, I think, 72 kilos. All right, so what about when we do get them in the gym? Women are often intimidated or excluded from traditional strength training settings. We're gonna have to deal with the meatheads in the gym. Or on the other extreme, we have the female-centric fitness centers. Like in the States, we have one called Curves. Okay, let's sit in a circle on some machines. So we have this treadmill elliptical culture that focuses a lot on cardio. And then when we do put weights in women's hands, they're teeny tiny. All right, Fitspiration, bombarded by messages that link strength to appearance. Strong is the new skinny, talked about that. And here, the quote from earlier, we were talking about outcome-based. This is Brad Norris, right, from this morning. Outcome-based or outcome-focused strength or fitness. How many women do you know that are after either ideal? I don't know, maybe some. But this is all about willpower. I lost all the weight. I have the discipline to go to the gym every day. When neither is probably necessary. But if the actions don't match the goals, then we have this unsustainable system and women disengage. So here are the solutions. It's up to us as experts and influencers to speak honestly about the implications of strength training for women. We need to educate them and support women's curiosity. Open dialogues to build open source platforms for disseminating this information. And make deliberate choices about the media that not only you consume, but you put in others' hands. Don't buy into hype and temporary fixes. Stop telling women to be careful or they will bulk up. Your language matters. It's powerful. So many women have told me to my face that they were told by somebody else to be careful. They might get hurt. Don't get bulky. And this is the really important part. Provide good coaching, support deep practice. That's a hat tip to Daniel Coyle in the Talent Code if you've read that. And support ignition. Community is important. Create supportive environments that forge strong social connections and create a culture of respect, support, and trust. This is my gym. These are our girls. So this was a quick little quick little survey I did last year. 1,500 people replied, over 1,500 people, women. And they said the two most important things that they got from strength training wasn't getting smaller, getting toned, any of that stuff. It was getting an increase of confidence and building strength. So we have the answers, we just have to help people do it. Oh, this is a video, I'll skip that one.
These women are.
There's a bunch of old ladies lifting barbells, so if they can do it, so can you. And really quickly to kind of wrap it all up with technology, we're becoming increasingly socially isolated. I read The Village Effect by Susan Pinker this year. It changed everything, how I thought about stuff. So if we can get women in the gym together doing this stuff, the results are incredible. Not too many people are going to go to the squat rack where all the bros are hanging out and go do their sets of whatever squats and then go home and feel great about it and I'm so motivated to go back. You have to create the community. Gamification and wearables, they exist. I used to have a Garmin, it used to be attached to me every day, so I used to go ride. But this stuff is mostly geared toward the endurance sports world, not towards strength. We've got here Fitbit and Nike Plus. It's all about burning calories. How many calories you burn every 5 minutes? That's that graph. What the heck? Or some random points that you earn for moving fine, movement's great, but how can we help women to actually quantify this stuff? And when it does exist, this is a brand new company that's coming out with these sensors you put on your body to measure how you're moving through space. You're just learning how to do this, and you're going to rely on biofeedback, which is great, but who's there to correct it? I mean, it's a lot of information, so we're not quite hitting the mark even with this stuff. And then the last part of that is competition. So as we heard earlier, sometimes competition doesn't resonate with people. And in the famous words of Greg Glassman, who is the creator of CrossFit, if you guys know that, it is our observation that men will die for points. Quote, put your score on a whiteboard and all of a sudden you're gonna go harder, faster, longer, and past your limits. It's not necessarily healthy. So the solution to that, develop more options for strength training apps and software that gamify the process and allow for tracking of your own development and your own progress. But realize that building community through real life social contact is a must. So to get women to stay, we need the social connection. And doing it over a device when we're already detached because of technology isn't going to bring that piece back. So the future's in the past. Get together, have coffee after, do all those things that people do. And that social connection is going to bring you back and keep you engaged. So, 4 conclusions. Strength training is an important facet of a healthy lifestyle. Women need support from experts, healthcare practitioners, and coaches, and we need the right facilities. Give us a bar and some bumper plates. Not teeny tiny little kettlebells that look like a purse. Change the dialogue. Celebrate women for doing strong things rather than having a certain look. You see a friend, you're like, wow, have you lost weight? It's that's how they look. Think about something else to ask her. Or another compliment, like, wow, you seem a lot happier these days. You're smiling more, or whatever it might be. But then the focus isn't on how they look. And think about what we say to our little girls too. She's so beautiful. It starts really young. And lastly, design technology that will help women quantify their progress, but never replace community. And if you need one message to take away from this presentation, it's that toning is for printers. And that's our little cat, Ellie. That's how you can get hold of me.